Okay, so now we are on to Exodus 22. It's been several weeks since I've read. I've been really busy. But anyways, so these are the things that God was telling people a very long time on what you can and can't do. And I think we talked about this before, but why is the basis for society between good and bad? Why isn't it okay to steal? And why isn't it okay to murder? And why isn't it okay to commit adultery? All this came from God. These rules came from God a very long time ago. Now, sin and Satan and people themselves have changed these rules. All this love the one you're with and be perverted and teach your children to be perverted. But he speaks about this from a very long time ago, and this stuff has always been around. People have always been trying to pervert the world with sin. So here we go. He's explaining, this is before the coming of Jesus Christ, right? But he's laying out these rules because he knew this was going to happen. After sin came into the world, he knew this was going to happen, right? So here we go with more understanding of how we should live. And this, of course, was a long time ago. Back then they lived with sheep and they plowed their own ground and they did these own things. But still today, if someone steals from you, we can learn a lot just from what he was explaining way back then. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. So you have to, if someone steals, they are to restore back to you 5 times or 4 times what they stole from you. If a man steals, if a thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. So, if he tries to steal and he's struck, right? But if he gets away and he's chased down and killed, is what God's saying, there will be guilt for his bloodshed. But if he is found alive, if the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. In other words, if the sun came up and they hunted him down and killed him for stealing, there is guilt for his bloodshed. He should make full restitution. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. So, whatever it is that he stole, he has to make full restitution, or he is sold for his theft. So he is indebted to that person, right? If the theft is certainly found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or a donkey or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed and lets loose his animal and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution for the best of his own field and to the best of his own vineyard. If fire breaks out and catches in thorns so that stacked grain, standing grain, or field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. And what he's saying is, if someone starts a fire, then they have to restore what they damaged of someone else's, right? If a man delivers to his neighbor money or articles to keep, and it is stolen out of the man's house, if the thief is found, he shall pay double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought to the judges to see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods. So, first of all, this saying, whether the fire is started on purpose or not, you have to make restitution. You have to be careful when you're with other people or on other ground. You can't just walk out there and be dumb. And this is the way a lot of people in the world, all of us, have to learn our lessons the hard way, right? Through restitution, for restoring what we damaged or stole or accidentally took or whatever. But he's saying if you can't find the thief, then the person who was holding the money has to be brought before the judges in the event that he's tricking the person and he had something to do with it. For any kind of trespass, whether it concerns an ox, a donkey, a sheep, or clothing, or for any kind of lost thing which another claims to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whomever the judges condemn shall pay double to his neighbor. If a man delivers to his neighbor a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any animal to keep, and it dies, is hurt, or driven away, no one seeing it, then an oath of the Lord shall be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods. And the owner of it shall accept that, and he shall not make it good. So, he's supposed to take care of something, and it dies, or it's something happens to it, but the owner's like, I didn't do that, right? Then he has to accept that happened. Just because he wasn't there doesn't mean that it can't happen. But if in fact it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution to the owner of it, because he was supposed to take care of it, right? If it is torn to pieces by a beast, then he shall bring it as evidence, and he shall not make good what was torn. So now if it was a beast came, like an animal, right, and took it, then he doesn't have to. And these things still happen to this day. All of these things, he's really trying to lay it out for everybody because he knows how difficult people are going to be. People don't like to make restitution. It doesn't automatically come up into them. A lot of people know. Some people too. Some people are blessed with that gift of knowing that if they've done something wrong, they want to make it up to somebody, right? But there's a lot of people who do not. Hold on, let me grab a little more coffee. My throat's a little dry. Hold on here. Okay, so and if a man borrows anything from his neighbor, and it becomes injured or dies, the owner of it not being with it, he shall surely make it good. So if someone borrows something from you, way back then, but like, it also, we have to remember that God was laying out these rules and we're to follow them, but at the same time, we have to use our heads and use them as guidelines too. Like if I lend my drill, some old crappy drill, to my neighbor, he's like, do you have a drill I can borrow? Yeah, I've got one. And I know that it's old and it's no good and it breaks with him. Does he need to buy me a brand new drill? I mean, God knows your heart. You're not going to get away with ripping people off like that. So you have to think. If its owner was with it, he shall not make it good. If it was hired, it came for its hire. If a man entices a virgin who is betrothed and lies with her, he shall surely pay the bride price for her to be his wife. So, if she's already betrothed to somebody else and he sleeps with her, then that's his wife, and he has to pay the bride price. If her father utterly refuses to give him to her, he shall pay money according to the bride price of virgins. You shall not permit. So the first one is entices a virgin who is not betrothed, and lies with her. So if she hasn't had sex before, and she's not betrothed, then he has to pay the bride price and make her his wife. But if the father says no, then he has to pay the money according to the bride price of virgins, which back then, this was a big thing. And still today in people's heads, because we know that we are not supposed to have sex before marriage, right? We're supposed to develop a relationship. And if people followed this, there would be a lot less divorces, because people would know outside of sex if they liked this person, if they wanted to be with this person. But most marriages and relationships are driven by sex instead of intellect or friendship and these types of things. And that's why you see people going in and out and in and out. And you know, a lot of people, they just get to the point where they think, I will never be satisfied, but they keep having sex before they keep getting married. Before they get married. So if they want that blessing of friendship, they need to be patient. And I've made the mistake too, don't get me wrong. I have been married twice, and I did have sex before marriage. And I know that I've missed out on some blessings with that, and I've had a lot of frustration in both of my marriages. I'm married today to my second husband, and we love each other very much, and we are friends. But I know that certain things, blessings that I missed out on because I didn't follow what God told me. It's not necessarily punishment. It's just you miss out on certain blessings. In my opinion, by the way. Other people might not agree with that. That they think that I'm, some people believe that I'm being punished for that, right? Some Christians, that's your punishment. Whereas I see it as it's a blessing when you can follow God and be righteous, right? Remember, it says righteousness washes away a multitude of sin when we're righteous. And multitude is a huge, you can look at the definition of multitude. So I just feel like I missed out on a lot of blessings. Of sin being washed away and, things like that of this nature. You shall not permit a sorceress to live. Whoever lies with an animal shall surely be put to death. So if there's this person that's having sex with animals, this is considered by God at this time that they need to meet their maker. There is something seriously wrong with them, and they have to go to God. He who sacrifices to any god except the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. So whether it be by of course, what did they all do? What did they all do? And when he says utterly destroyed, does it mean that we were supposed to destroy them back then, the people? Or did it mean that they would eventually be destroyed? I think it was kind of both ways. I think God was like, this person is going to either continue to worship these idols, spread this sickness, and it's going to cause an utter destruction of an entire generation and generation and generation of a certain family or people. And once they invite that sin into their life, if they aren't destroyed, they will continue to destroy others because they're going to continue to do that. And that's what I think he meant way back then. Well, when Jesus came, he said, love your enemies, pray for them, right? This was how did he put it in the New Testament? This is the first covenant, and then there was the second covenant of the New Testament. This was like the beginning, the blueprint, and then there was the second covenant with God and the people, right? But there was a reason for it, because there was a reason he said to do these things, right? And then he talks about in the New Testament, he shows you when people did not do these things, which we're going to see that when they did not destroy this person, right? And utterly, a lot of people will say that means the whole family. But when they didn't, we do see that this spiritual sickness has spread through these generations. There are large groups of people that will build these big gold idols and worship them or worship whatever. And what happens is there is a lot of prayer and work and sacrifice that has to go in to try, now that Jesus came, that we have to try to bring them to Jesus. It's already shown when you see it that what this happens, and this is the same with this these Christian doctrines. When people change the Bible and they make their own doctrines, but they don't necessarily coincide with what the Bible says, but it seems that people need rules to follow. And they're easily brought down that path of regulation because people are lazy to read for themselves or even think for themselves sometimes. So this is my opinion, huh? Okay, so here we go. I'm going to stop because now this is turned into like, shut up, please, just read the Bible. Okay. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And I'm sorry, but I go back to when I was selling cars, and strangers would come to buy a car, and so many salesmen ripped them off. And all they needed to do to make a decent amount of money was to give them a decent price and a decent interest rate. But no, and they really reveled in ripping people off. And even though it was allowed, it was wrong. You have a choice in any job that you have, just like you have a choice in your life between good and evil. And you do not do this to people. And it was oppressing for a lot of these people who were talking these big payments that they really couldn't afford. By some silver-tongued cars person. Very sad. Because you're going to pay for that. And if you don't pay for it and you're a Christian, your family's going to pay for it when you're gone. It will be paid for. That sin will be paid for. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry at all to me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath will become hot, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. And what do we see so much in the world today? We see a lot of people dying, and we see a lot of childless people. Fatherless people. We see a lot of sickness in societies all over the world from these things, right? If you lend money to any of my people who are poor among you, you shall not be like a moneylender to him. You shall not charge him interest. If you lend money to someone who is poor, he says, where you know that they do, and you have the money, and you are one of his, right? And they are one of his, because, he doesn't say you have to be one of them, but he said, my people. And that means those who believe in God and worship God and try to follow his word, right? These are Christians. He says, you don't charge them interest. So we know that the old story of if you lend somebody some money, just plan on not getting it back. A lot of Christians say that, right? Well, it's true. Sometimes you just have to give somebody some money to get them up off their feet. And if they can't pay you back, don't worry about it. Just keep on going. Now, some people are going to harass people. You don't have to lend them money again. But if you have it to give, then just go ahead and give it and help them out, But if you only have it to lend and they don't pay you back, you have to just forgive that sin and keep on going. Because what are you going to do? Chase them down the rest of your life? It's way too, really don't lend it if you don't have it to lend. If you ever take your neighbor's garment as a pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. What will he sleep in? And it will be that when he cries to me, I will hear him, for I am gracious. You shall not revile God, nor curse a ruler of your people. You shall not delay to offer the first of your ripe produce and your juices. The firstborn of your sons shall be given to me. Now, a long time ago, they felt like that this meant that, a lot of the Catholics made their first son be a priest. They made one daughter be a nun. But for me, Moses and them, they didn't have the priests, but they had the elders and things. But that firstborn child was to be taught in the Word of God, just like all your children. But this child was supposed to be taught and brought up to be a leader, or a worker for God. So either they were going to be a prayer warrior to me, because look at Moses. Eventually he became this person who did God's will, and he didn't want to, right? He wanted Aaron to help him. God gave him Aaron. But this firstborn is supposed to be the one that you really focus on for them to be a part of God. All of us are supposed to be a part of God's plan. I'm not saying like that, but that's like the quarterback, I guess you would say. Likewise, you shall do with your oxen and your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it to me, and you shall be holy men to me. You shall not eat meat torn by beast in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. And that means that you eat clean meat. You don't eat meat that's had been torn up or, these types of things. He said you have to be clean. You have to be holy. To God, and that means to be clean and to do things that are righteous and holy, right? Okay, that's 22 minutes, so we're going to stop. And, oh my gosh, then we got to read 23. It gets exciting because the first part of 23 is you shall not circulate a false report. Boy, there's a lot of that going on. Tons of people do that. Tons of politicians, lawyers, judges, all kinds of stuff. Okay, have a great day.